today we're doing 6.5 and we're going to talk about drawing three-dimensional figures. And it's really going to be important that if you need to, you refer back to your textbook. And it starts at page 302. So I may reference some pages, so you might want to have your book out next to you to help you. Alright, so the first thing that we need to do is get three definitions down. And I'm going to draw an example to hopefully help you understand these better. But first, let's just get the definitions down. The first is a face, and your face is going to be a flat surface. The second is an edge, and an edge is where two faces meet. And then finally a vertex, and this is where three or more edges meet. So now I'm going to show you an example of these. Okay, so here's an example of a three-dimensional figure. If I look at this, and I'm going to shade in this side. This right here is an example of a face. So each of those sides would create the face. So in this case, we would have four around and then one on top and bottom. So in this three-dimensional figure, there would be six faces. An edge is where two faces meet. So right here, this is an example of an edge because it is where the face that I just shaded in, as well as the face in the front, meet. Right here would be another example of an edge because it's where, again, the face that I shaded in and the top face meet. So there are many edges around. Finally, there are also many vertex. Right here is an example of a vertex. A vertex is where three or more edges meet. So I have an edge here, an edge on top, and then an edge on the left of it. So three edges are meeting in that one point. Over here is another example of an edge. It's where this one, this edge, and this edge meet. See if you can find another edge. Alright, I'm going to show you another example. Let's look at this figure. Let's see if we can find a face. So remember, it's your flat surface. So if I look here, this one right in front, it's a good example of a face. An edge is where two faces meet. So right here is an example of an edge. Finally, a vertex is where three or more edges meet. So right at the top is an example of a vertex. Alright, the next thing that we need to do is get the definition of perspective down. And this is going to be a technique used to make drawings of three-dimensional objects appear to have depth and distance. The other definition that you need to get down is vanishing point. And a vanishing point is seen in a one-point perspective, which is what we are going to look at in the next slide. Okay, if you look at this picture, this is an example of a vanishing point, and all the lines that are dashed are ones that you can't see if you are looking at it, and this part right here was the front. So this green line is a visible edge, so you would be able to see this. All these other darkened and black ones you would also see. This one in the back that's red are all the hidden edges, so they're there, but you can't see it, okay? And then here is your vanishing point. So this is what we're going to use to create this three-dimensional object. So you're going to create these lines, but again, if you were looking at it, you would not see them. So we're going to try to create one of these on our own, okay? So what I need you to do is, I'm not going to write down all of the steps. I'm going to verbalize them, but they're all on page 303 in your textbook if you need to go back and look at them. So we're going to try to create this together, okay? So the first step that we're going to do is we need to draw a rectangle. We're going to try to recreate this object right here, this drawing. So the first thing that we need to do is just draw a rectangle. And we are going to label these A, B, C, and D. The second part that we need to do is create our vanishing point. So this is actually a lot easier than it looks. What we need to do is we need to create 3 lines that intersect at a point, or at a segment, or excuse me, at a vertex. So the first one that we're going to do is between A and C, because we're just going to draw it straight back. And I'm going to use a dashed line so that I can erase it later. And now I'm going to do the same thing from point B, but I want to connect it up to here. So I'm going to have to do this at sort of an angle. And then the same thing with D. So this point right here is our vanishing point. So let's label that V for vanishing point. So now what we need to do is create the back face. So if I were to turn around, this is the face that I would see. So what I'm going to do is on this point, or on this line segment of B and V, I'm going to write G. I'm going to create point G. Then from here, I am going to draw a line connecting it to the middle one. That point, I'm going to connect down, and then I'm going to do the same throughout. So now I've created another rectangle. Okay? Then from here, I can connect those 2 vertices. So now I'm going to connect G to B. I'm going to connect these 2 together. And there you can see your points. Now if I were to go back and I were to erase all of this, you wouldn't see this, and there's my figure. I could also make these points in the back. I can make them dotted like they did up here, because those are the ones that you're not going to see. But this is how you would create these 2 shapes. Let's try this again, but now we're going to try a 2-point perspective drawing, so where I could see it from 2 different faces. And when we do this, we're going to have to use something called a horizon line. And this is just when I'm going to use 2 vanishing points rather than just 1. So we're going to start creating this, a 3-dimensional figure. And the first thing that I want to do is let's just make a line segment, and let's label this A and D. Okay? And then above that, we're going to make our horizon line. So right above it, I'm going to create a line. And on this line, I'm going to make a point of V and a point of W. So this line up here is an example of a horizon line. Then what I'm going to do is, just like we were doing before, I'm going to connect the top using dash line to point W, as well as A to point W. And let's do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to connect D to V and A to V. The next thing that we need to do is on line segment VD and DW, we are going to make 2 points. So on DV, let's make a point C, and on point DW, let's make a point E. Now from here, we need to create 2 more dashed lines. Now we need to go from C to W and from E to W. So I'm just going to make the dashed lines again. Now I just need to fill in my squares. So I have one right here of D and A. Here's another one right here. Here's one. Here's the top of my figure. Now I just need to create the ones going down. Fill those in. And there is my 2-point perspective drawing. And then what we could do is we can go back and we can erase all of this, and we will just see our shape. From here, we're done with notes, so you can fill out your exit slip for today.